In this video, we'll show you how to change the rear axle bearing on your Chevy Silverado. You can find it on CarParts.com via the link in the description. For safety reasons, we strongly suggest watching our video on how to jack your Chevy Silverado safely. Now you need to remove the brake system. To do so, we recommend watching our video, How to Replace the Drum Brake Shoes Chevy Silverado. You'll now need to remove the ABS sensor from the wheel knuckle. Using a ratchet and a Torx T30 socket, unscrew the ABS sensor's retaining bolt. Using a flathead screwdriver, pry it out of its slot. In order to remove the rear axle shaft, you need to disengage it from the differential. Place a fluid collection tray under the differential to catch the differential fluid that will flow out. Unscrew the drain plug using a ratchet and a 3/8" square socket. Start the process with the ratchet and finish it off by hand. Using a ratchet and a 13mm socket, unscrew the 10 bolts holding the differential cover. For great content, our best price, and fast shipping, download the CarParts.com app now. Remove the differential cover. Lift it off using a small crowbar as a lever. Let the fluid run out for about 10 minutes. Remove the used gasket. In order to work with the differential, you must manually put the vehicle in neutral. To do this, using a Phillips screwdriver, unscrew the 2 screws holding the plastic cover located under the steering wheel. Using a multi-bit screwdriver and a 10mm socket, unscrew the plastic cover retaining bolt. Pull on the dashboard side cover to remove it. Remove the plastic cover. Using a fork, disengage the shifter cable from the shifter lever. Then pull the shifter cable to put the vehicle in the neutral position. You can now freely rotate the rear axle in order to access the pinion shaft lock bolt. To prevent the differential from rotating when unscrewing the lock bolt, return the shifter cable to the park position. Using an 8mm wrench, unscrew the lock bolt from the pinion shaft. Then remove it. Pull the shifter cable again to put it in the neutral position. Rotate the differential in order to access the pinion shaft. You can now extract the pinion shaft by pushing it outward. Rotate the differential to access the retaining clip. Return the shifter cable to the park position. Remove the clip using a magnetic extender. You can now remove the rear axle shaft. We recommend using a slide hammer. Even with this tool, removing the axle shaft can be a long and painstaking process. You now have access to the rear axle seal and to the rear axle bearing. Using a screwdriver, pry out the rear axle seal until it can be rotated into its housing. You can use a hammer to help you. For great content, our best price, and fast shipping, download the CarParts.com app now. Then remove it using pliers. In order to remove the rear axle bearing, you must have the proper equipment, which in this case is a bearing removal tool. Insert the moving part behind the bearing. Then using the bolt, press the washer on the outer part of the bearing to lock the tool. Secure the tool on a slide hammer. Then extract the rear axle bearing by tapping with a slide hammer. Before fitting the rear axle bearing back on, you must clean the seal surface to ensure it is completely impermeable. Remove the used seal with a razor blade. Then scrub with fine sandpaper. You can also use a wire brush to help you. Finish with brake cleaner and wipe with a paper towel. Use the link in the description to order the rear axle bearing that is used in the video on CarParts.com. Apply assembly grease to facilitate the installation of the new bearing. Attention! The bearing must be inserted properly. Ensure that you are inserting the side of the bearing that is more rounded on the differential side. The shape of this side facilitates insertion. Place the new rear axle bearing in its position. Then, using a bearing installation tool and a hammer to drive the bearing all the way to the stop in its position. Clean the seal surface with brake cleaner and paper towels. Take the new seal. Then fit the rear axle seal into its position. Use the bearing installation tool and the hammer to finalize the installation. Apply assembly grease to facilitate the installation. Take the new rear axle shaft and insert it all the way into its slot. Then reinsert the retaining clip. You can use a magnetic extender and a screwdriver. Then pull on the axle shaft to block the retaining clip in its housing so that you can insert the pinion shaft. Reinsert the pinion shaft. It can be difficult to put it back into its housing. You can use a flathead screwdriver. Pull the shifter cable again to put it in the neutral position. Rotate the axle shaft so that you can replace the lock bolt. Return the shifter cable to the park position. On this vehicle, the lock bolt tends to break in the differential. We therefore advise you to replace it with a new one. Then put the lock bolt back in place, first by hand, then with the 8mm wrench. Finish tightening using a torque wrench. Put the shifter cable back in place on the shifter lever. Replace the plastic cover. Then retighten the retaining bolt. Then screw the two retaining screws back in. Then clip the side cover back on. Before replacing the differential cover, you need to clean the seal surface to ensure a perfect seal. Clean the seal surface with brake cleaner and paper towels. You can also use a car trim removal tool to help you. Then scrub with fine sandpaper. Finish with brake cleaner and wipe with a paper towel. Protect the differential with a clean cloth. Repeat the same operations on the differential. Remove the cloth. Once perfectly clean, put the new gasket in place. Replace the differential cover, first tightening the bolts by hand. Then screw them back in with a ratchet until they make contact. Finish tightening the bolts in staggered order using a torque wrench. Now you can put the rear brake system back in place. To do so, we recommend watching our video, How to Replace the Drum Brake Shoes Chevy Silverado. Insert the sensor into its housing. Then retighten the retaining bolt. Finish tightening using a torque wrench. Now you need to add fluid back into the differential. This step must be done with care and precision. First, lower your truck back onto the ground as the differential fluid must be filled with the vehicle flat. Then, using an oil syringe or a bottle with a filling spout, fill the differential fluid until the fluid overflows from the hole, indicating that you have added enough fluid to the differential. Clean the differential's filler cap well because it is magnetic and there is often grime left on it. Now you can screw the filler cap back on. Finish tightening using a torque wrench. Clean up the fluid that overflowed the differential. Operation complete.
Quality parts, priced right, CarParts.com.